He writes under the name Evlstan. He writes a blog called Charlie Upside Down at WordPress.com. Evlstan is a young writer living and working in East Bay, California. He earned a journalism degree from Southern Illinois University in 2008, where he spent nearly 3 years working as a reporter and editor at the school student newspaper, The Daily Egyptian. He moved west after college, only to find the media institutions of the left coast in shambles. He took a day job to keep food on the table and cold beer in the fridge, and found writing gigs where he could. He wrote scathing political op-ed columns for a socialist design called Eat the State in Seattle, and commercial real estate forecasts for the retail space news in Northern California. In 2011, Evlstan started the Charlie Upside Down blog as an experiment in anti-journalism, and also, I think, to keep his sanity. Anti-journalism, the art of writing beautifully over-descriptive and intentionally meandering stories to help chronicle his time in the East Bay. His writing is inspired by what he sees, but is always embellished. Cheers.
This is the time of the party when that adult content disclaimer will be fully fleshed out. You may note the lack of patriarchal references in my writing. My father once told me he resented my mother for dying young, but what he really resented was getting stuck with me. Thankfully, our entanglement was short-lived, and I left home when I could to get on with my own life. My stories tonight are about respect, control, reverie, and passion, and those are things he could never teach me. The Peril of Mount Hill. We went to a show at a dive bar called the Red Devil Lounge. There were impish cherubs adorning the walls, and the bartender had a greasy black pompadour and a red velvet suit with white edging. I ordered 2 $10 whiskey cocktails and hung out with Marzipan while she shimmied. And hung out while Marzipan shimmied her way up to the stage and danced like wildfire. She moved organically with the beat, even though the sound was a bit off. The guitars were too high, and the bass washed out. But the poppy tunes were sweet and simple and augmented by keyboard guitar solos and megaphone shouts and energy to spare. I brought her a half-drunk drink when the set was over, and she gulped it down with zeal. We waited around near the side of the stage while Lion stashed his guitars somewhere in the back room. When he came out, he greeted us with green room beers, and we sneaked outside and smoked free cigarettes from short girls in ugly blouses. The air was cold and salty, so we hung around a bit to cool off. When the smoke was gone and the beer was empty, we went back inside to warm up again. We found Bender at the bar with an empty glass and cash in his hand. He was sweaty and red-faced and jumping as a band in black trench coats played hot punk music. Lion and I jumped in the fracas and hustled cheap beers off a frazzled-looking waitress caught in the middle of all the frivolous hopping and bopping. Lion grabbed her hand and spun her around, and I grabbed beers as she twisted by. Bender gave her a few dollars and a smile when she came to a stop, and we disappeared into arms and legs and sweat and spit and stuff. I drifted through the crowd and rolled a wave of shoulder bumps and nudges until the song stopped. I found Lion and Bender and Marzipan in the middle then. We took advantage of last call with fire shots and heavy chasers. Lion rolled a few more cigarettes, and we burned them on the corner and said goodbye drunk and adventurous. Bender wandered ahead while Marzipan and I ambled slowly along. We took in the brisk night and listened to the city noises. It was calm and serene. And then Bender yelled with delight. We found a late-night donut shop down the street with a neon blue blinking sign that beckoned our drunk, hungry mouths. He ran inside, but Marzipan and I stopped and looked through the big front window at the display case that held an assortment of frosted and deep-fried wonders. We found bear claws and maple bars and long johns and 2 monsters. A pair of chocolate frosted discs at least 8 inches across. They probably weighed 4 or 5 pounds apiece, and they spilled over the edges of the display pan. I marveled at the giants a while and imagined eating one, bit after bite, until it was all gone. Then I imagined dying of some gut-twisting ailment having to do with recently consuming a Frisbee-sized donut. Bender strutted through the door then, holding a 12 box of the fresh devils, and interrupted my musing. We stood near the bus stop and ate them all in just a few minutes. I had at least 3 by myself and licked sugar out of my beard all the way home. Then I shit 3 times before 8:30 the next morning. Fuck donuts. An interesting relationship with gluten these days. The next story is called Cayenne. This story was recounted by friends. It happened to them, and I came to hear it later. And thus, the legend grows by 1.5 times here. We were waiting in line at a burrito truck. Now, the burrito truck on Grand Avenue, when a man approached down the same side of the street. He had 2 dogs with him, tied to the ends of a long rope that looped haphazardly around his midsection, leaving gouges of rope burn and ripped flesh where his tattered shirt was worn away. The dogs crossed their lines back and forth as they followed their noses in random directions. As the man came near, the cord entwined his drunken feet and he fell with great force. While he struggled to gain his bearing, the dogs stretched to the ends of their lead, pulling away from each other, suspending the poor, howling drunkard and bouncing him up and down, up and down. He gripped a fire hydrant with fury and hauled himself to his feet as he reeled in the beasts. He coiled one rope around his hand and pulled and leaned, then went the other way with it, getting the dogs closer to his heels. And by and by they were secure there, and he looked at us and smiled and slurred, "This here chimney, and that, peppermint." Peppermint leaned her head around his bony leg and stuck her tongue out at us with a soft look in her eye. The man wobbled a moment and then screamed, "Damn it, Simon! Say hi to your friends!" Simon growled and tore into the back of his knees. The man buckled as the dog attacked, and his open mouth gaped, and he huffed great puffs of dust and dirt into the air, but no sound came from his throat. He lay prone, paralyzed with fear and resignation as the dog's brindled coat turned crimson and the gutter filled with blood and saliva and denim and meat. Then a woman all wrapped up in layers of coats and dresses and trash bags slid around the corner and rushed to pull Cinnamon away. The dog relented at the woman's touch and left the man to bleed his last. She untethered the animal and the 2 walked away together. The woman patted Cinnamon on the head and said, "I told him your name was Cayenne."